Your doctor handed you a piece of paper, and those numbers quietly changed everything you thought you knew. You sat there nodding, trying to stay calm, but inside, something heavy and frightening had already taken hold. The word creatinine felt foreign, clinical, and cold, like a warning written in a language you were never taught. You went home, opened your laptop, typed those words in, and the internet made everything feel 10 times worse. Some pages told you kidney failure was coming, others sold supplements, and none of them actually told you what to do. That confusion, that quiet fear sitting in your chest at night, is exactly why this conversation needs to happen right now. Because here is what nobody told you when they handed you those results and sent you home alone with them. Elevated creatinine in adults over 60 is one of the most common and most manageable findings in modern medicine today, but only if you understand what it actually means, why it happened, and what specific actions can change the outcome immediately. That is exactly what we are going to do together, step by step, starting from the biology and ending with action. First, let us talk about what creatinine actually is, because the number means nothing without understanding the story behind it. Your muscles are constantly working, even when you are sitting still, burning through a compound called creatine to produce energy continuously. Every time a muscle fiber contracts, a tiny byproduct called creatinine is released directly into your bloodstream without exception or pause. This happens all day, every day, in every person alive, because muscle activity never fully stops, not even during sleep. Under normal circumstances, your kidneys catch that creatinine as blood passes through and flush it out cleanly through your urine. The blood levels stay within a predictable range, around 0.7 to 1.2 for men and zero point 0.5 to 1.0 for women. When those numbers climb above the normal range, the kidneys are telling you something very specific and very important right now. They are struggling to filter the blood as efficiently as they once did, and that reduced efficiency has a measurable name. It is called the glomerular filtration rate, or GFR, and it is the single most important number in kidney health today. The lower your GFR falls, the more your kidneys are under strain, and the higher your creatinine climbs as a result. But here is what most people never get told, and this is the part that changes how you should feel right now. A high creatinine does not automatically mean your kidneys are permanently damaged or that you are heading toward dialysis or failure. In many cases, it means the kidneys are under stress from causes that are real, identifiable, and absolutely within your control. Understanding those causes is where your power begins, so let us walk through the 5 most common drivers found in older adults. The first is simply the biology of aging, something that affects every single person who lives past their 40th birthday without exception. After 40, kidney filtration capacity declines by roughly 1% every single year as the structures inside gradually lose their sharpness. By the time someone reaches their 70s, they may have already lost 25 to 30% of their peak kidney reserve. This does not mean disease, but it does mean the margin for additional stress is narrower than it was decades before. The second driver is high blood pressure, and this one is critically important because most people underestimate just how much damage it causes. Inside each kidney are millions of tiny filtering units called glomeruli, and they're built from extraordinarily delicate, pressure-sensitive capillaries throughout. When blood pressure stays elevated year after year, those fine capillary walls stiffen, narrow, and slowly lose their ability to filter properly. What makes hypertension especially dangerous for the kidneys is that it works both as a cause and as a direct consequence simultaneously. Damaged kidneys raise blood pressure, and raised blood pressure damages kidneys further, creating a cycle that accelerates without deliberate and informed intervention. The third driver is elevated blood sugar, and this applies not only to people with diabetes, but to millions who do not know yet. When glucose circulates at high levels over time, it binds to proteins and blood vessel walls in a process called glycation. Think of it as sugar slowly stiffening and clogging the delicate filtration network that your kidneys depend on every single moment. This damage is silent, invisible, and relentless, unfolding over years before a single symptom or formal diagnosis ever appears in your life. The fourth driver is one that surprises almost everyone, and it is so common in older adults that it is practically an epidemic. That driver is dehydration, and the reason it is so underappreciated is that older adults lose the ability to feel thirst reliably. A younger person will feel thirsty after losing roughly 1 to 2% of their body water and will drink immediately. An older adult may lose 3 to 4% before feeling any thirst at all, meaning they're already significantly behind. When the body is dehydrated, blood volume drops, becomes thicker and more concentrated, and the kidneys receive dramatically less flow to work with. Creatinine cannot be flushed without adequate urine output, so it accumulates in the blood and inflates the numbers on your test results. Many people who believe their kidney function is deteriorating are actually experiencing the compounding effects of years of chronic, unrecognized mild dehydration. The fifth driver is something almost nobody brings up in that appointment room, and it may be the most actionable of all. Certain medications, both prescription and freely available over the counter, place direct chemical stress on kidney tissue with regular or long-term use. Non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs like ibuprofen and naproxen are taken by millions of older adults daily for joint pain and inflammation. These drugs block a group of compounds called prostaglandins, which the kidney uses to maintain its own internal blood flow and pressure. Without adequate prostaglandins, blood supply to the filtering units drops, and in someone already under kidney stress, the effect can be swift and severe. Now that you understand what is causing the problem, here is the most important thing you need to understand about timing and urgency. Kidney disease moves through stages, and the stage you are in right now likely represents your greatest window of real opportunity. In the early and moderate stages, when GFR is still partially preserved, lifestyle and dietary changes can genuinely slow and sometimes reverse progression. In the later stages, when significant permanent nephron loss has occurred, the kidneys become far less responsive to anything you eat or do. The 5 actions we are about to go through are designed specifically for this window, the place most people reading this currently occupy. This is not a moment for panic, but it is absolutely a moment for precision, for calm, deliberate, and immediate protective action. The first action is the one with the fastest impact and the lowest barrier to starting, and it costs nothing at all. Drink water deliberately and consistently every single day, not when you feel thirsty, but on a schedule your body can rely upon. Set reminders on your phone every 2 hours from the time you wake until early evening, and honor them without negotiation or excuse. Fill a 1.5-liter bottle each morning and make finishing it completely your single non-negotiable priority for the day. The goal for most adults with mildly or moderately elevated creatinine is 6 to 8 glasses of plain water spread evenly throughout. Herbal teas like dandelion root and nettle both show mild kidney supportive and diuretic properties in the research literature and count toward your total. Water-rich foods like cucumber, celery, watermelon, and zucchini also contribute meaningfully to daily hydration while delivering valuable nutrients your kidneys can use. What you must reduce significantly are large amounts of caffeine, all alcohol, and sugary sodas or energy drinks that add chemical burden. Track your urine color throughout the day because it is the most honest and immediate feedback your body will ever give you. Pale, almost clear yellow means you are well hydrated and your kidneys have the fluid support they need to filter efficiently. Dark amber or orange means you are already behind and your kidneys have been working under unnecessary and preventable stress all day. The second option is the one that produces the strongest and most consistent results in clinical research, and it will feel counterintuitive. You need to reduce your protein intake, especially from red meat, and this runs directly against popular health advice in many circles. Every gram of protein you eat, especially animal protein, gets broken down into amino acids that leave behind nitrogen-containing waste products. These waste products, including urea, uric acid, and creatinine itself, must all be filtered out of your blood by your kidneys daily. The more protein you consume, the greater the volume of nitrogen waste your kidneys must process during every hour of every day. For kidneys already working below their optimal capacity, that extra filtration burden does not just strain them, it actively accelerates their decline. Multiple well-designed clinical trials have confirmed that reducing dietary protein in people with kidney disease meaningfully slows the rate of GFR decline. The recommended range for adults with elevated creatinine is generally between 0.6 and 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight daily. For someone weighing 70 kilograms, that translates to roughly 42 to 56 grams of total protein spread across the entire day. That is significantly less than the high protein recommendations often given to older adults for muscle preservation, and the difference matters enormously here. Plant-based proteins like lentils, chickpeas, and tofu produce considerably less nitrogen waste than red meat for the same amount of protein delivered. Fish and poultry in moderate portions are far preferable to beef, pork, processed meats, and organ meats in the context of kidney health. Start this week by removing red meat entirely from your meals and replacing it with lentil-based dishes, tofu stir-fries, or grilled fish. Keep protein portions at each meal to roughly the size of your palm because that simple visual guide is surprisingly accurate and practical. Discuss your specific target with a physician or renal dietitian because the right number depends precisely on your individual GFR and other factors. The third action targets a hidden enemy that most people drastically underestimate, and it is embedded invisibly in almost every packaged food sold. Sodium, when consumed in excess, forces the body to retain water in order to keep blood sodium concentration at a survivable level. That retained water raises total blood volume, and elevated blood volume pushes blood pressure higher through every vessel in your body, including the kidneys. The glomeruli, those fragile filtering capillaries we discussed earlier, are now being subjected to even greater pressure than their damaged walls can tolerate. Glomerular damage accelerates, protein begins leaking through the filtration barrier into the urine, and creatinine climbs further as kidney function deteriorates more rapidly. Nephrology guidelines for adults over 60 with elevated creatinine consistently recommend keeping sodium intake below 1,500 to 2,000 milligrams per day. That is approximately half a teaspoon of total salt, including every hidden source across everything you eat throughout the entire day. Here is the part that shocks most people when they first learn it and completely reframes how they think about their diet. The salt shaker on your table is not the problem, because most people with kidney disease have already stopped using it heavily. The real danger lives inside processed soups containing 800 to 1,200 milligrams of sodium in a single standard serving alone. It lives in bread, in deli meats, in condiments, in cheese, in cereals, in biscuits, and in virtually every packaged sauce sold. These foods do not taste overwhelmingly salty, which is exactly why people consume them without realizing how much sodium they're adding daily. The shift toward a genuinely low-sodium diet requires reading every label with the same attention you would give a prescription medication bottle. Look for products containing less than 140 milligrams of sodium per 100 grams and prioritize those consistently over others. Cook from whole ingredients as often as possible and replace salt-based flavor with garlic, lemon juice, cumin, turmeric, ginger, and fresh herbs. Within 2 to 4 weeks of meaningfully reducing sodium, most people with sodium-sensitive hypertension see a measurable and significant drop in blood pressure. That reduction in blood pressure translates directly into reduced pressure load on the kidneys at every single moment of every single day. The fourth action is one that most people associate only with diabetes management, but its connection to kidney health runs far deeper than that. Blood sugar control is kidney protection, and these two things are not separate subjects in biology. They are completely inseparable conversations about the same tissue. Even in people with no diabetes diagnosis, repeated exposure to high glucose blood sugar causes direct damage to the glomerular capillary network over time. Glucose molecules bind to proteins in vessel walls in a process called glycation, stiffening and scarring the filtering structures of the kidneys silently. This process does not announce itself, does not cause pain, and does not show up on any test until the damage is already accumulating. Research on adults with prediabetes, which affects an enormous proportion of people over 60, shows kidney markers already deteriorating during this intermediate phase. Waiting for a formal diabetes diagnosis before addressing blood sugar is not a medically sound strategy for anyone who wants to protect their kidneys. The dietary approach that best protects kidney health through blood sugar management is built around 3 clear and immediately actionable principles worth remembering daily. First, replace refined carbohydrates with complex, fiber-rich alternatives that slow glucose absorption and prevent the sharp post-meal blood sugar spikes that drive damage. Choose vegetables, legumes, whole grains, and low-sugar fruits over white bread, white rice, pastries, sweetened cereals, and all sugar-sweetened beverages without exception. Second, spread carbohydrate intake across smaller, more frequent meals rather than consuming large portions in single sittings that flood the blood with glucose. This pattern reduces the height and duration of blood glucose peaks, which directly reduces the glycation burden your kidney capillaries experience each day. The fourth option is one that most people associate only with diabetes management, but its connection to kidney health runs far deeper than that. Blood sugar control is kidney protection, and these two things are not separate subjects in biology. They are completely inseparable conversations about the same tissue. Even in people with no diabetes diagnosis, repeated exposure to high glucose blood sugar causes direct damage to the glomerular capillary network over time. Glucose molecules bind to proteins in vessel walls in a process called glycation, stiffening and scarring the filtering structures of the kidneys silently. This process does not announce itself, does not cause pain, and does not show up on any test until the damage is already accumulating. Research on adults with prediabetes, which affects an enormous proportion of people over 60, shows kidney markers already deteriorating during this intermediate phase. Waiting for a formal diabetes diagnosis before addressing blood sugar is not a medically sound strategy for anyone who wants to protect their kidneys. The dietary approach that best protects kidney health through blood sugar management is built around 3 clear and immediately actionable principles worth remembering daily. First, replace refined carbohydrates with complex, fiber-rich alternatives that slow glucose absorption and prevent the sharp post-meal blood sugar spikes that drive damage. Choose vegetables, legumes, whole grains, and low-sugar fruits over white bread, white rice, pastries, sweetened cereals, and all sugar-sweetened beverages without exception. Second, spread carbohydrate intake across smaller, more frequent meals rather than consuming large portions in single sittings that flood the blood with glucose. This pattern reduces the height and duration of blood glucose peaks, which directly reduces the glycation burden your kidney capillaries experience each day.